When I was a child, there were certain things that were set apart for special occasions. The best china, the Christmas tablecloths, the front room. This was like a sacred space for visitors and for Christmas. This illustrates in 1970s culture what it means to be sanctified, to be set apart. The Oxford English Dictionary defines sanctified, to be set apart, to declare as holy. To sanctify something means to set it apart for special use. In the Old Testament, certain objects were set apart. Their use was only for worship and sacrifice in the tabernacle. But God doesn't only set apart objects for worship, but people for himself. In Exodus 31 verse 13 we see the compound name Jehovah Makedesh. I am the Lord who makes you holy, or I am the Lord who sanctifies. It's in the character of God to set people apart for his special purpose. In the context of Exodus 31, we see this characteristic of God in his covenant relationship with the people of Israel. We often see the people of Israel called the chosen people, and this has often been seen to be God picking them out as special people. In fact, it's more about them being set apart for a special purpose. God chose them to be priests for the whole world. Their responsibility is to be the mediators between Jehovah and the rest of the nations of the world. In Exodus 19 verse 5 and 6, God says this to the people: Now if you will obey me and keep my covenant, you will be my own special treasure from among all the peoples on earth. For all the earth belongs to me, and you will be my kingdom of priests, my holy nation. Isaiah 61 verse 6 says, You will be called priests of the Lord, ministers of our God. It's in God's character to choose people for his special purpose. In this example it was the Jewish nation, but we see throughout the Bible people chosen by God for special purpose. For example, Moses, Gideon, Samson, David, Esther, Mary. I could go on. We often hear people quote Mordecai's words to Esther, Maybe you were born for such a time as this. God chooses people, sets them apart for a particular task or ministry. It's in his character to use us to achieve his purpose. In the New Testament, we see a change to the identity of the chosen people. In the Old Testament, you had to be a Jew or become a Jew. You obey the law to be part of the chosen people. In the New Testament, we see that those who participate in the New Covenant are called the chosen people. Jeremiah prophesies this New Covenant. I do a new thing. I write the law on your hearts. When Jesus died and rose from the dead, he made a new covenant, and the old covenant of Moses became obsolete. This new covenant means that the people set apart as priests for the world are the church. Peter writes in 1 Peter 1 verse 2, God the Father knew you and chose you long ago, and his Spirit has made you holy, or set apart. Ephesians 1 verse 4, even before he made the world, God loved us and chose us in Christ to be holy and without fault in his eyes. If we read the first two chapters of 1 Peter, he makes it clear the new set apart people are those who've trusted Jesus for salvation. And he finishes that passage by saying in 1 Peter 2 verse 9, You are a chosen people, you are royal priests, a holy nation, God's very own possession. As a result, you can show others the goodness of God, for he called you out of darkness into his wonderful light. God has chosen us to be mediators, to be prophets to the world around us, to bring reconciliation between man and God. The ministry of the church is to reconcile the world to God. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5 verse 18 and 19, And all of this is a gift from God, who brought us back to himself through Christ, and God has given us this task of reconciling people to him. For God was in Christ reconciling the world to himself, no longer counting people's sins against them, and he gave us this wonderful message of reconciliation. God has chosen us. We are set apart as holy. Jesus chooses you. I'm not saying that to try and make you feel good, but because it's in His character to set us apart for Him. You are chosen and called as part of His church to a specific ministry of reconciliation to the world. If it's God's character to sanctify people, what does that mean for us, the church?